For several weeks now, YouTube has been cracking down on the Batwoman reviews, deeming them unfit for most advertisers. And my theory is that the CW has something to do with this, that they're trying to hurt content producers who make negative reviews about their precious show that stands for LGBT representation and female empowerment. Because how dare they, right? So I thought that if I made this video look like a positive review, maybe they'd leave me alone. That's why the thumbnail and the title of this video are what they are. This is an experiment. I don't know if it's gonna work, but we'll see how it goes. You are a real piece of work, you know that? Just when I think you couldn't push the envelope anymore, you go and pull a stunt like this. 36,000 views for the last Batwoman review. Are you kidding me? I did not put myself through that living hell for just 36,000 views. So, you want to get nuts? You want to play hardball? Well, game on! You brought this on yourself, you son of a bitch! When you get to hell, tell him Thorias sent you! Alright, boys, let him have it! Welcome back, everybody. I just got the data from last week's experiment, and unfortunately the results are inconclusive. While the Trojan horse thumbnail and title were successful in convincing any concerned parties to deem the video suitable for most advertisers, apparently it worked a little bit too well. And so many people in our target demographic were fooled into thinking that the video was a positive review of Batwoman, if you can even imagine such a ludicrous thing, that they wrote the video off as the ravings of a madman and didn't even bother to watch, resulting in a roughly 37% drop in viewership as of right now. Oh my god. Okay, clearly more R&D is necessary. Oh man, the guys in market research are tying the nooses around their necks even as we speak. So I'll get back to you on that one. But for right now, it'll have to wait, because I have other things to work on. So, what am I reviewing today? Okay. Crisis on Infinite Earths, Part 1. A little disclaimer here before I get started. I've mostly sworn off the CW superhero shows at this point. The only ones I've watched recently are Batwoman, only to review it, and Black Lightning, because Black Lightning is generally a good show, due in no small part to not being affiliated with the Arrowverse, though as I understand it, that may be changing post-Crisis. God help them. Also, I have a pretty low opinion of these big annual crossovers. In my opinion, they are the TV equivalent of dangling something shiny in front of a baby to get it to stop crying. Basically, these crossovers are about the writers just throwing as much crap at the wall as they can, as fast as they can, and hoping the audience will be so dazzled by the big fight scenes, the big set pieces, and the novelty of seeing all the characters from all the different Arrowverse shows all together that they won't notice how hollow, poorly written, and devoid of substance the entire event really is. They throw in a shitload of fan service, blow about a third of their annual budget, not even bother to write a good story because, let's face it, no one's watching these shows for good writing at this point, and just like that, they get a big annual ratings bump across all the Arrowverse shows for a week or two. Congratulations. Now if only some of these shows could generate interest without the big crossovers to keep them afloat, and you might actually have accomplished something. So I'm going to review part 1 of this thing. I think it was technically a Supergirl episode, even though it was airing in Batwoman's time slot for some reason. I don't know how that all works. It's really confusing. I think part 2 is the Batwoman episode. That will have aired by the time this review goes up. But just doing part 2 would have been weird. And part 1 is the one that has to hook you. So screw it, I'm doing part 1, and the quality of part 1 will determine whether or not I review the rest of them. So will the quality of part 1 be good? Spoiler, no it won't. Now, I will admit, these crossovers do tend to do fan service very well. And as transparently manipulative as that is, there is a cool factor to it. The comic fan in me did geek out at a couple things that happened here because they know the right buttons to push. The episode begins with a flat, monotone narration by an actor who sounds bored as hell, which surprisingly was not Ruby Rose for a change. And this voice gives a brief explanation of what the multiverse is and how it's now in danger. They do a quick rundown of several different parallel worlds and some of the people in them. And we get two things that made me geek out like a fiend. Danny Elfman'S Batman theme from the Tim Burton Batman movie. One of the most iconic superhero theme songs of all time. It was only there for a few seconds, but they played it and it was awesome. And then, holy crimson skies of death! It's Burt Ward. Burt fucking Ward from the Adam West Batman show. I love the Adam West Batman show. One of the first DVDs I ever bought was the movie they did. The one with the shark repellent bat spray. I fucking love it. So to see Burt Ward on the screen doing his holy fill-in-the-blank catchphrase just for a second, they got me. I was grinning ear to ear. A few minutes later, we check in with Sara Lance and Ray Palmer. They're at some trivia game night thing at a bar somewhere, and who's running the game? It's Arthur. The guy who played Arthur on The Tick. The fucking Tick! Spoon! Man, I'm gonna miss that show. God damn it, Amazon. So yeah, on the surface, there are cool things about these crossovers that very few comic geeks are gonna be completely immune to. But it's only surface level. And once that novelty wears off, you start to realize that that's just about all they have going for them. Novelty. Novelty, and in this case, wokeness. Lots and lots of wokeness. The episode starts with Will Wheaton, strangely enough, playing some crazy guy on the street, yelling about how the world is ending and Supergirl can't save us, only for him to be attacked by a dragon of all things, and saved by Supergirl, thus proving that Supergirl is the bestest ever, and the evil, ignorant white male is evil and ignorant simply because he's a white male. Then Supergirl turns the dragon into an iguana. I assume that ties into something happening on Supergirl right now, but I have no idea. I only watched the show to make roast videos, and I'm still on season 1. So we cut to Team Supergirl HQ, where she gets filled in on some huge crisis that's going on. Apparently, there's something hurtling through the universe, gobbling up everything in its path, and when it reaches the edge of the universe, because I guess the DC universe is finite or something, it's going to then boomerang back. And when it reaches our solar system, everything will be wiped out, so by tomorrow night there will be no more universe at all. We're like 3 minutes in, and already they're throwing so much preposterous nonsense at us that I have no idea what's going on. I even wrote in my notes right here, I have no idea what's going on. And I don't think that's because I haven't watched any of these shows in a while. So while our queen of wokeness Supergirl is learning about this universe-ending catastrophe about to befall everyone, we cut to Superman in Argo City, who is changing dirty diapers, completely unaware that anything is wrong, while Lois teases him about having met his match, because lest we forget, the Arrowverse version of Superman is a massive cuck. This was just the first of several examples of that in the episode. And don't take it the wrong way, I'm not saying there's anything bad or wrong or inappropriate about a new father changing his kids' diapers, or that doing so makes him a cuck. I'm just using this to make a point. Supergirl is trying to save the universe, Superman is combating diaper rash. So Supergirl gets a message hologram to them that something bad is happening because this massive evil whatever it is going to hit Argo City before it reaches Earth. And then instead of alerting the people of the city and telling them to evacuate, Superman decides that all those people can go f*** themselves, and instead, him, Lois, and Supergirl's mom, who came back to life at some point between seasons 1 and 5, load baby Jonathan into a spaceship so he can escape. It's supposed to harken back to Superman's origin, but instead it's just stupid. They obviously had this ship built in case of emergencies, and they apparently had plenty of time to do it, so why wouldn't they build a ship that would fit all of them? Why make one that would fit only the baby and no one else? Because then we wouldn't get the fan service. The empty, hollow, pandering, shamelessly manipulative fan service. ZOMG, it's just like Superman's origin, except now he's Jor-El and baby Jonathan is him! Ah! Sure, it looks like that, but if you actually think about it for 5 seconds, it completely falls apart. So Jonathan's pod narrowly escapes the annihilation wave or whatever the hell it is, and Argo City is destroyed. But luckily, Lila shows up just in time to save them, because she's working for the Monitor now, I guess, and she teleports Clark and Lois to safety. But not Supergirl's mom. That lady, Lila just leaves her there to die. Even though she was right there with Clark and Lois, and that makes no sense at all. But we need some pointless deaths to create tension, so bye Erica Durance. We'll see you later in the crossover when you're playing Lois again. Back on Earth 1, we join Oliver and Mia, his daughter from the future, on Lian-Yu. Oliver's talking about how if he hadn't come to Lian-Yu, he wouldn't be the Green Arrow, wouldn't be the man he is today, wouldn't be looking at his daughter right now. I'm not sure what this is about exactly, but I'm assuming Mia tried to use time travel to make sure Oliver never wound up on Lian-Yu or something like that. But Oliver, being one of the exceptionally few rational, reasonable, level-headed characters in the Arrowverse, as long as Felicity isn't there, he tends to get really stupid when she's involved, he seems to have convinced her not to do this. And he says, "Something tells me you're gonna create your own stories, Mia. 'Cause we gotta telegraph the hell out of that upcoming spin-off, right?" Yeah, just what the Arrowverse needs, another fucking spin-off. Then the sky turns red and Lila appears and she says that the crisis has begun. Then she teleports over to Central City to collect Barry, who in true Barry Allen fashion is completely clueless about everything that's going on. Then we cut to... oh, God. We cut to Gotham, where Alice's thugs are robbing an armored car when Batwoman appears. Batwoman apparently not giving a rat's ass that the sky is basically on fire right now, or maybe she just didn't notice, I wouldn't put either one past her, proceeds to have an absolutely terrible fight sequence shot entirely in quick edits and close-ups so you cannot see a single goddamn thing that happens. She puts the fear of God in one of these guys and demands to know where Alice is, and it's incredibly transparent that this is all just for show, because previously, whenever Kate wanted to find Alice, she was able to do so hilariously easily, but now all of a sudden it's really hard? Give me a break. Then Lila teleports in and says, "The multiverse is in danger!" And Batwoman is like, yeah, in a minute, I'm doing something here. So, Batwoman is more concerned with her own personal vendetta against Alice, which wouldn't even be a thing in the first place if it hadn't been for Batwoman being a horrible character, mind you, than she is with the fate of the entire multiverse. Kate is horrible. Absolutely just horrible. Cut to Sara and Ray in Star City for the scene I mentioned earlier, and they're casually talking about how Ray changed the past and screwed up the timeline, something to do with Janis Joplin, and I am so appalled at this barely even registering with them anymore. Before I stopped watching all these shows, I watched one of the crossovers, I think it was the first one, in which Sara lectured Barry about the dangers of time travel and changing the timeline due to the ripple effect that it can cause, because for the purposes of that story, any change to the timeline, no matter how insignificant, could create cataclysmic life and death stakes. And Sara was portrayed as a supposed expert on this because of the whole Legends of Tomorrow thing. But now, changing the timeline isn't even a big deal anymore. It's a fucking joke. For all you newbies out there, you better get used to time travel making no damn sense whatsoever on these shows, because that is a big theme. No matter how characters might say time travel works, it doesn't. In reality, there are no set rules for time travel whatsoever. It's completely arbitrary. The rules of time travel are whatever the hell the writers need them to be in order for the story to work, and they change those rules constantly. Short version, this week changing the timeline is no big deal, next week it'll be something different. Moving on. So Lila collects them, and she returns with everybody to Supergirl HQ on whichever parallel world that's on, and she tries to get everybody up to speed, but I'm still very confused because I keep getting distracted by Alex's hilariously awful haircut. It's like the writers want to make sure everyone knows that Alex is gay now at just a glance, so they gave her the most comically stereotypical lesbian haircut you've ever seen. It is Captain Marvel's hair in Avengers Endgame levels of bad. I don't know how long Shyler Leigh has been forced to wear her hair like that, but I do not envy her. There's this one moment in the scene where Ray offers to upgrade Kate's gear for her, and she's like, "How attached are you to your arm?" And he backs off. And it's absolutely laughable. Kate Kane is 5'7", 90 pounds soaking wet. Here's Ray Palmer, like 6'5", towers over this woman, probably outweighs her by 100 pounds or more, and he's wearing his super suit, and he's the one who's intimidated. You. So then this giant tower magically appears outside, and this is a quantum tower, whatever the hell that is. And this quantum tower is the only thing that can save the people of Earth, so they have to protect it from the Anti-Monitor. I could use a lot more information, but that's all we get. Meanwhile, they've been tracking baby Jonathan's pod, which, on its way back to Earth, was sucked into a wormhole. But not just any wormhole, a temporal wormhole. Because that's a thing now. And the pod landed on a parallel Earth, but not just any parallel Earth, a parallel Earth in the future. They just automatically know this because the plot says so. And just like that, as if by magic, because why should the writers need to actually explain f***ing anything, they are able to instantly determine which Earth the pod landed on and which time period it's in. So Clark is about to ditch everybody to go to this parallel Earth in the future to get his son back, but Oliver, the audience's only life raft in this sea of idiots, rightly points out that, dude, we kind of got a crisis on our hands here, and we need the cook of steel on deck or the entire multiverse is screwed without lube, which is a little bit more pressing than your kid being on a parallel Earth in the future because Lila didn't bother to pick him up while she was teleporting between Argo City and Earth because the writers needed a side plot to pad the episode and they couldn't think of a way to write it in that didn't suck. So Sara, Lois, and Brainy go instead. I'm assuming he's some new iteration of Brainiac, but I didn't give enough of a shit to look it up. Meanwhile, Henshaw is leaving to, believe it or not, talk to every single alien refugee on the planet to convince them to lend the heroes their ships, because the plan is, and I swear to God I'm not making this up, to evacuate every single human being on Earth into these ships and transport them all to Earth 1 in less than 36 hours. What the f... Just give me 1 minute. What the f... Oh my God. I have so many questions. I have so many questions. How many aliens are there on Earth that he's going to talk to, all in person apparently, in this short amount of time? How many ships do they have that they can fit over 7 billion human beings into them? How are they going to evacuate the entire human race in less time than it would take to evacuate a small town? And assuming they can pull that off, what's the plan when they arrive on Earth 1, which would now have a population of about 14.5 billion people, give or take a few aliens and robots? Holy shit! There's bad fanfiction, there's really bad fanfiction, there's Batwoman, and then there's this. Leave it to the Arrowverse writers to take the most dire crisis the entire multiverse has ever faced and turn it into such a fucking farce that I had to pinch myself to remind myself that what I was watching was in fact not a comedy. So in order to do this, they're going to need a trans-meta portal something or other, and Lena Luthor is the only one who can build one of these things. Alex doesn't trust her, but they're not spoiled for options right now, so she goes to talk to her. So while everyone else is being useful trying to figure out how to save every universe from getting blinked out of existence, Super Cuck is busy feeling sorry for himself. He feels stupid for thinking he could give up being a superhero and live a normal life. He feels like he deserves this, like he's being punished somehow. But Supergirl gives him a pep talk, and somehow she ties this all back to Krypton and what Krypton means to everybody, and they have to keep fighting to keep Krypton's spirit alive. I have no clue how that relates to this situation, but here's a question. Why the hell isn't he the one giving this speech? He is Superman. He is the biggest hero in the DC universe. Despite what the writer's politics would have you believe, Supergirl is a B-lister at best. And yet here she is, propping up Superman instead of the other way around, because God forbid Superman start mansplaining at any point, right? Jesus Christ. Cut to Oliver giving Mia her very own Green Arrow suit. Where the hell did this come from? I don't know, but apparently Oliver was storing it at Supergirl HQ on a parallel world. Because he didn't bring the suit with him when Lila teleported them there, meaning that it was already there waiting for them. What? Why the hell would Oliver make a costume for his daughter and then keep it on a parallel Earth? Was it just in case there happened to be some huge multiverse-ending calamity and they got teleported to this exact location in another universe? Holy shit, what are the fucking odds? So he basically says that there needs to be a Green Arrow and that's her now. He's trying to tie up all his loose ends because he knows his time is coming up soon, I guess. And I'm okay with this. There's a legacy there. This is Oliver's daughter. He's giving her his blessing, and she's not smug or militant about the whole thing like Kate Kane would be. She seems like a likable enough character from what little I've seen here, so fine. Then Oliver talks to Barry, and Barry says that he's supposed to die in this crisis. And he seems weirdly unconcerned about that. So then Oliver talks to the Monitor because this doesn't track with the deal that they made in an episode I never saw that Oliver would die so that Barry and Kara would live. What in the blue hell was he smoking when he made that arrangement? So we would lose Oliver, but keep Barry and Kara? Has he met Barry and Kara? That is a terrible fucking deal! But the Monitor says that the annihilation wave threatens all realities, so their deal doesn't apply in this case or something. I don't know. I'm caring less and less at this point. Then Alex goes to talk to Lena Luthor. They're on the outs because of something that happened on Supergirl recently, but the fate of the world is at stake, so Lena says she'll help. Then some of the heroes assemble at the base of the Quantum Tower. Apparently Mia's Green Arrow costume is just a generic black suit. Most of these idiots have absolutely no idea what to do, so thankfully Oliver takes charge and starts giving orders. But immediately, Super Cuck and Supergirl have to leave to deal with an earthquake on the East Coast. What? We literally just had a scene where Clark was about to leave, but Oliver said, "No, we need you at the tower. The entire multiverse is at stake. Get your priorities in order." And now he's leaving again, taking Supergirl with him, and Oliver is just letting them go. Meaning that their two most powerful members won't be there when the army of demons descends upon them to destroy the one thing stopping the Anti-Monitor from destroying all of reality. And why? To deal with an earthquake? Do Super Cuck and Supergirl have earthquake-stopping powers now? Why even bother? If that tower gets destroyed, everyone in danger from the earthquake is getting blinked out of existence anyway. This is so stupid. We don't even see what they're doing with this earthquake. They're just off screen for a few minutes for no reason. It's just a ridiculous, paper-thin excuse to get the supers away from the tower because they could easily take out that army of demons all by themselves, so if they're at the tower for the battle, the good guys would win very quickly. It's such lazy writing, and I have no patience for it anymore. Cut to Earth 16 in the year 2046 in Star City. Because out of anywhere on the planet the baby's pod could have landed, it landed in freaking Star City. Because they didn't have the budget for another set piece, I guess. So of course, this entire thing takes place in the Earth 16 Arrow Cave, where Sara, Lois, and Brainy are attacked by Earth 16 Oliver. I believe this episode was handled by the Supergirl writers, so you can probably guess how this turned out. Brainy is a man, so he goes down instantly, he's completely useless, while Sara fights Oliver and effortlessly defeats him in seconds. Then they reveal that Earth-16 Oliver has pulled a Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi and turned into a broken, depressed old man. But stop me if you've heard this one. Sara gives him a pep talk and lifts his spirits. His Sara died on the Queen's Gambit, but getting on that ship was her choice, and it's led to her having this amazing life and being happier than she's ever been, blah blah. There's a whole scene of them having a nice, relaxed conversation, and I have to ask, aren't they supposed to be racing against the clock here? The multiverse is in peril. Do they really have time to have a heart-to-heart with a parallel Earth Oliver? No, they don't. They don't have time for any of this, but they're doing it anyway because they have to pad the episode, and better they do it with some cheap, empty pathos than with another big action set piece they'd have to pay money for. So eventually they get the baby and they take off. Back at the Quantum Tower, the demons show up, and the fight is not as good as you might think. It's mostly just the camera zooming around all the heroes as they shoot at CG demons in the air, and the CG isn't even that good. There's one part where Kate finally agrees to let Rey upgrade her gear, so he just puts the Batarang on his gauntlet, and I guess does some kind of instant wireless data transfer or something that magically turns this Batarang into a super demon-killing Batarang. It's nowhere near the stupidest thing in the episode, just go with it. More fighting, Mia saves Oliver at one point, they fend off the wave of demons, and then the Supers and the Flash arrive the second the battle is over. Just after the nick of time, thanks for fucking nothing. Cut to somewhere else where two characters I don't know are waiting for Henshaw to show up with a ship, and then Henshaw shows up with a ship and they start loading people onto it. Great. Just a little over 7 billion more people to go. I'm sure that won't take any time at all. Meanwhile, Lena's busy working on the portal, but she can't figure out how to make it work. But then Alex figures out how to make it work, because Alex is an expert in dimensional portals all of a sudden. Sure, why not? Her list of jobs is in double digits now and there's no end in sight. Then they emotionally validate each other and it's all pretty nauseating. We go back to the Quantum Tower, where the sky is turning red again, and there's more demons on the way, so the Supers fly up to the top of the tower, and it's solar-powered apparently, so they shoot their heat vision at this thing, and of course, Super Cuck runs out of juice first and falls to the ground useless, but Supergirl keeps going, keeps shooting her heat vision at this thing until the tower is fully charged up, and then Super Cuck is like, wow, you're always showing me up, huh? Naturally, because she's the bestest ever, and you're a man, which means that you're inferior to her in every way. And when he was just a guest star, they might have been able to make excuses for stuff like this, but now that they're working on a Superman spin-off show with this character, maybe the writers should put some thought into not portraying the Man of Steel like the superhuman equivalent of a wet noodle. Who the hell wants to watch a show about a super cuck who openly admits at every opportunity to being vastly inferior to his own female knockoff version that was spun out of his IP in the first place? I'd tell these writers to start using their brains, but I honestly don't think they have any. More fighting, more shooting at poorly rendered CG demons. We get the obligatory look how cool we are as we flip in slow motion shots. And then the Monitor shows up and says the battle is lost, so he teleports everyone away to conserve their resources, but Oliver wants to stay and fight, so he knocks the guy out with a taser arrow or something. I'm a Marvel guy, I'm not incredibly familiar with the DC characters, so correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the Monitor supposed to be some incredibly powerful cosmic being or something? And he's being taken down by a fucking taser arrow? On a good show, that would be by far the stupidest thing in the episode. On this one, it doesn't even crack the top 5. So Oliver stays and fights for a while, and the fight happens off-screen, so even though we're building up to Green Arrow's death, we don't even get to see the blow that kills him. What is wrong with this picture? So yeah, Oliver dies. Eventually the Monitor wakes up and teleports him back to Earth 1 anyway, but he's gravely wounded. And instead of giving him emergency medical attention to try to save his life, everyone just stands around doing nothing. The Monitor says that Oliver saved 1 billion people before the tower was overrun, but now their Earth is gone. If only, Monitor. If only. Oliver says goodbye to his friends and his daughter, and he dies. It's sad. I guess, but obviously their universe is not going to stay gone, and Arrow Season 8 doesn't finish until January, so clearly there's going to be some takebacks here before the story's over. And sure enough, the Monitor says that this was not Oliver's ending that he foresaw, so draw your own conclusions. Then some iteration of Harrison Wells teleports in, and he says he freed the Anti-Monitor only to become a pariah to bear witness to his actions or something, and now everything is doomed. To be continued. I don't plan on watching any more of this crossover, but my guess is that through time travel shenanigans, the older Oliver of Earth-16 is going to replace our Oliver in the Tower Battle and die in his place, so our Oliver can live on to finish out the last couple episodes of Arrow. Otherwise, why the hell was Earth-16 Oliver even in this story? So that was Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 1, and my opinion of these crossovers has not changed. The first thing that jumps out at you is how frenetic the pacing is. It goes from breakneck speed to slow as hell and back again, just like that. It evens out by the end, but at that point the pacing is the least of their problems. I'm not even a little surprised anymore that even with the combined efforts of the creative teams of every Arrowverse show, the writing is still embarrassingly awful. Things happen not because they make sense, but because the story says they have to, despite not making sense. There's plot holes all over the place. Characters are just randomly taken off the board every few minutes for no reason at all, just because the writers can't seem to figure out what to do with them. But if you don't know what to do with them, why even put them in this crossover in the first place? Fan service can't be your answer to everything, you hacks! And then when you add in all the feminism crap with all the male characters being shoved into the back seat or only being there in the first place to make the female characters look superior by comparison, with the exception of Oliver since he's about to bow out of the Arrowverse, and holy shit is that universe going to be lesser without him, all you're left with is an overcrowded, frustrating episode that tries to do so much but accomplishes very little because they still think mindless spectacle is a substitute for good writing, and it's so obvious that almost every bad thing that happened here is going to be undone by the end of this crossover anyway. The only bad thing that might stick is Oliver's death, but even if it doesn't, he'll probably just die again a few episodes later when Arrow wraps up. So yeah, these crossovers haven't changed all that much since I stopped watching. The novelty of the fan service only goes so far. I can see how some people enjoy them in a turn your brain off sort of way, but if you have to turn your brain off to not notice all the problems, then they're just pandering to the lowest common denominator. Personally, I don't like turning my brain off when I watch a TV show. I like to think. And if you really think about it, these crossovers are just dumb. That was your review of Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 1. Not technically a Batwoman episode, but she was still in there, and I figured reviewing Part 1 would be less confusing than doing Part 2, and Part 1 didn't impress me, so I'm gonna be stopping there. And I believe that'll be it for Batwoman in 2019, but when it returns in the new year, the Batwoman reviews will be back as well. I've come this far, so I might as well finish out the season. In the meantime, I get a nice little break from this shit show for a while, so I'm going to work on some other videos. The Rise of Skywalker is coming up pretty soon, so I have to do some stuff for that, God help me. I hope you will all join me for those. That's all for now, but there's a lot more to come, so like, share, subscribe, make sure you're still subscribed, because YouTube likes to unsubscribe people sometimes just to be a dick. Ding that bell icon for notifications, follow me on Twitter using the link in the description so you'll always know when new videos get uploaded, and I'll be back with those videos very soon. Over. Out.